Hello and welcome back to our tutorial series on Let's Code Games, where we try to recreate Zelda 3, or at least some of the core mechanics of Zelda 3, so we can learn how a game like this is created in Unity. So this is week 7 and we've been making some really good progress so far. So last week we added functionality that we can pick up objects like the sword here, for example, and then a short animation is being played. And so now we can use the sword, and you can see here there's still something we want to do with the sword. There's some sorting issues here that we want to fix, but we also have some, so we can attack with the sword. We did that in the last couple weeks, and then we also have the chest here that we added a shield into, so we can pick it up. But once I pick it up, you will also see one of the issues that we have right now that I want to address today, and that is that both our items, the shield and the sword, are being displayed when we pick it up. But this is a pretty simple fix. I thought about a method there that we can do to fix that, because right now both items are attached to the same hand, so you can see that the shield that we pick up is also attached to the sword hand, and we of course want to attach it to a different hand here. So there's some animation stuff that we want to do today, and I think the biggest thing that I want to tackle today is that we start with some enemies. As I've showed you guys last time, we have some cool animation by our artist Jesse, and this enemy that we got is a bat. It's a pretty basic enemy from Zelda 3, and we want to recreate that functionality and then also make it extensible enough so we can implement other enemies later on pretty simple. So we have a bat with some basic animations here. It also has an idle animation, and yeah, we'll see how far we get. Okay, so some pickup animation fixes, and then we want to have the enemy in there. And there's also some camera stuff we can do, for example, and this should be a very simple implementation. So right now the camera is simply parented to our character, but in Zelda we have some camera zones, so that, for example, the camera would not go farther than to the right side here. So the character would move on, but the camera would stop, so we don't see beyond the tree line here. And then when we move into another camera zone, which would be something like this, for example, then the camera would scroll over quickly. So that's a pretty simple implementation that we can do optionally in the end if we have time for it. But let's start with the pickup animation and some animation fixes as well. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to replicate the approach that we did for the sword hand here. So as you can see here, the sword is being displayed, and if I minimize this, the way we did that is we created a parent object for our character called the weapon parent, and we simply attach the sword to this weapon parent here at the center. You can see here it's basically at position 0, 0, 0 and has no rotation. So the benefit of this is that we can attach swords to this empty game object, and they will and we can animate this empty game object, and all the items we attach to it will be animated as well. And I want to do this for the shield as well, and also I want to have a third hand basically, which should be the preview hand. So, and I want to use the preview hand here for these animations when I pick something up, just to make it easier later on, so we can say I only want to display the preview item and not display the items that I have in my sword hand and my shield hand. So it's just easier to display and choose in our code later on which item we want to display. Yeah. So that's basically what we want to do. So we will add two more parents, child objects here, a shield parent and a preview item parent, because the preview item parent would fix this issue here, that the sword and the shield are being displayed on the same at the same time, because right now the shield and the sword are both attached to the sword hand. Okay, so let's start with that. It's a simple enough implementation, just to get warmed up a little bit. So we duplicate the weapon parent, we call it shield parent, and then we also duplicate the shield parent again and call it the preview item parent. And the preview item parent basically is invisible all the time, except for when we play those two animations, the pick up with one hand or the pick up with two hands animations. So yeah, let's go over to our animation here, and we have in our visuals object we have all the different animations set up here, and those are of course available in the animation view because they are all part of our animator here. So it looks a little messy, but it works. So basically every animation that is part of our animator will be shown in the animation window when you click on the appropriate object. And for this we're going to use the pickup one hand and the pickup two hands. Thanks for taking the time to do the series. I just discovered it now and I think it looks great. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy it. And kudos to the one who did the graphics. Yeah, Jessie is amazing, and she always delivers cool new art for us. So hopefully we can see much more of her and her graphics. I actually talked to her what we want to do in the coming months or something, and we can do dungeons, we can do more enemies, we can do particle effects, all of that. So it's going to be exciting. Hopefully this project will look really great. All right, so for the pick up one hand, let's go there again, back to the scene view here, and basically you see if I click into the animation window here, the animation gets previewed, and our weapon parent has been moved, but our shield and item parent remain at their center positions. And basically we want to switch this because we don't want to use the weapon parent for this. So let's just move the preview item parent. And what we can do is, since we already did this with the weapon parent, I just click the weapon parent, right click the transform and click copy component, and then paste the values into this one. Right click again on the transform for our preview item and then paste component values. And so basically we copied over our transform from our weapon parent, and then we can remove our weapon parent property from this animation because we don't need that anymore. We just need the preview item, and then we do the same thing for the pickup two-handed animation. And so and the cool part about Unity is basically it adds you can add the property here and then find it in the hierarchy here, but it's much simpler to just press record, and we did it did that automatically for us, and then just change the value that you want to change, and then it adds it automatically. So just in case you missed it, so we don't have the preview item parent right now, and then if I just move it, you can see it gets added automatically. So, and then we do the same thing, go over to the weapon parent, copy its values, and then paste it to the preview item. And we can remove the weapon parent. Okay, so this is the setup for our animation. So preview item parent now has its proper position, and then we need to change the code that the item is being displayed when is attached to the preview item and not to the weapon parent. So let's go over to the code and see how we implemented this part of our of picking up the item and displaying it. So basically in our chest object, so this a little smaller here and make this a little larger so the code is not obscured. This should be better. Okay, so in our interactable chest we basically call the inventory add item method. So let's go into this method, and in the add item method we set up a database. We did that last time, and in the database we can set if an item is equipable, and if it is, then we want to equip the weapon. And we have to expand this a little bit more. So equipping any weapon that is equipable is really not that good. We have to expand the system a little bit later on, so we can have special weapons, then we can have the sword weapon and the shield weapon, and attach them to different parts or give them different functionality and stuff like that. So let's see what the equip weapon method is doing. Equip method, and I think, and here we're basically saying, okay, this is being equipped, which I actually don't like all that much, because we don't want to necessarily equip the item immediately, but we want to display the pickup animation anyway. So for example, if there's a rupee in there or stuff like that, we still want to display or at least have the option to display the pickup animation and not equip the weapon. So let's decouple this preview code from our pickup code, because the equipped stuff, that is good enough, and then it's whenever it's equipped, the new sword object is being instantiated and attached to our weapon parent, which is okay, which is fine, but still, but this set frozen part and pick up weapon part, that is not what we want to do here actually. So let's remove this part and then add a new method. Pick up item, or let's call it show item pickup, and then we have an item type. So and when we set up show the item pickup, then we want to freeze the character, we want to display the animation, and we want to create the prefab of the character and attach it to the preview item parent. So let's copy this part of the code here, so the creation part, because this is something that we still need. New item object, let's rename this. And then we also need this part of the code. So this is basically finding our item data from our database. So we have our database that we can access and find the item, and the item data that we get back basically tells us if there is a pickup animation. We're going to use that. We actually added that, but we haven't used it in the code yet. So we're going to check if there's a pickup animation, and then we have the prefab and the is equipable, which is cool. So show item pickup, so we find the item. If we don't have the item in the database, then we just don't want to do anything. Otherwise we freeze the character, set our pickup objects, because the view is actually using this variable to determine if we want to display the animation or not. And then we also want to instantiate it, and and this is something we need to do as well. So we create a reference to our newly created shield parent and our newly created pickup item parent, because we want to create the object there, show item pickup, attach it to the pickup item. Let's go over to the view of our view that basically tells us that that basically is responsible for displaying the animation, so the movement view. And let's check how we did this. So we have update picking up animation here. It's checking if we have pick up one-handed or two-handed, and then set these variables to the to our animator. Get item that's being picked up. All right, okay, that is all well and good. Basically, what I'm looking for right now is where we are handling the continuing of movement. So basically, the game is frozen when we pick it up, but as soon as the player is moving the character in any direction, the game is resumed again. So I'm looking for that piece of code. I think, yeah, this is here. Perfect. Because we want to destroy the preview item again. So in order to do that, let's create a private variable that is storing our preview item, pickup item, and then down here when we create it, we actually don't create this in a temporary variable, we create this in our variable that we have created in our class, and this way we can then destroy this item again once we don't need it anymore. And that is here. So set direction is called by the control that whenever the character, the player wants to move in any direction, and then we are checking if the direction is not 0, so if he wants to move in any direction, and if the item is being picked up is not none, then we want to set it back to none, set frozen to false, and then also destroy the methods, destroy the item again, because we only want to display it for the animation. When programming, do you use any programming design pattern? Yeah, and there's the answer already. It was covered in an earlier episode. He uses MVC for this. Yes, thank you for answering. Yeah, exactly. I'm using a loose pattern called model view control. I'm using it very loosely, but I'm separating my code basically in three different aspects. One is the model that stores all the values, one is the view that displays all the values, and one is the control that gets the user input and passes it on. And just by separating it this way, the code will be much cleaner later on and easy to set up. But there's a YouTube video about this. So if you go to the YouTube channel Let's Code Games, there's a YouTube video explaining this pattern and how we use it in our project here. All right, so let's see if I think this should. Let's see if we did everything right here. So I want to minimize this because I want to keep an eye out for my hierarchy here. So the weapon parent is inactive right now, which is fine. And once I get this item, nothing is happening. So I must have destroyed something somewhere. So let's see. Oh yeah, I'm not calling this method here. So let's go back to our, was it the interactable? No, it was in the inventory. So we are checking. This is fine with it if item data is not 0. So this is basically once the item gets added to our inventory. So, but we want to expand this item data. So if the item data is not 0, if we found it in the database, and then we check this separately. If it's equipable, then we want to equip it. We change that later as well, because multiple weapons could be equipable. And then we also want to check if item data, the animation, if the pickup animation is not none, we want to show the item pickup. But it's already added to our inventory. So this way an item doesn't have to be equipable in order to display this animation. So let's go here, equip this. Alright, so there's still some parenting issues here. Let's see what's going on here. So it's still getting attached to the weapon parent and not to our preview parent. Have I not changed that part of the code? So okay, I forgot to set up the references here, so our new shield and the preview item. Well, let's make sure that the naming is consistently, so we call it pickup item parent, same as here. So the sword is being created, but somewhere in my code I'm showing the sword, but I don't want to show it actually. I think this might be in the animation actually. Let's go back to our animation here. This is missing. Why is this missing? Just because I renamed it? That's not good. This is not good. Okay, so let's put this back here again and then remove the preview item. So that's something we learned. When you rename something, the animation breaks. So, are you planning on developing AI, for example, for enemies? Yes, actually. So today we're going to add a simple bat, and the AI for the bat is not too intelligent actually. It's just basically idling around, and when you get too close to it, it flies around a little bit. But it's a good start, and then later on, when we have other enemies as well, we'll add different types of AI for those as well. So if this broke here, then it probably broke here as well. It did. So let's put this here, then remove it. And in our animation, we actually, this is what we did last time. So basically, we are calling in one animation event, we're calling this show weapon method, and we use that to show our sword. But we don't need that anymore because we're now using the code, the preview code here. So let's remove this again, and so we remove the event, so the show weapon is not being called. And then we can also, I think, in the idle, but yeah, it's fine. We just leave it like that. But no error was thrown last time, which is confusing, even though I didn't set up the references. So let's see what happens now. If I pick it up, it actually works. It's cool. And the sword is attached to the weapon prefab parent, but that is still inactive because we haven't called the show weapon method. But it is also attached to our pickup item parent. It's a little off. I fix that in a second. And then when I move again, perfect. The sword gets destroyed again. This is actually what we want, because now if I go over to our chest here and get this, it should display the correct animation and only the shield without the sword. And there you go. There's the shield display. It's a little high. Let's fix that as well. But there is no sword here. And then also, oh, the shield still gets equipped. Okay, that is something we have to expand upon. So let's fix the animations quickly, the positions, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to attach a sort to the picker parent here, and then play the animation, or go to the frame basically, and then I see how it looks. So I can change it. No, I don't want to change the sort position, I want to change the parent position, please. There you go. And then for pick up 2 hands, I want to do the same thing, but this has to be way lower, like this. Alright. And I can remove the sort again. Okay, so let's make sure that the shield is not being attached to our sword hand, because that is one issue that we still have. We actually want to attach it to our shield hand. So we need to expand our item database once more. Not only, we're changing the is equipable to public enum equip position. You can say it's not equipable. Let's not call it none, let's call it not equipable. Is it a double P or 1P? I don't know, that's 1P. Not equipable sword hand, shield hand. And then we can change the is equipable to the type from Boolean to our enum here. And then some of the code breaks, but the compiler is telling us, because right now we cannot simply check for true anymore. We basically have to check for sword hand. And then we add a new method later on calling, and we call it equip shield as well, so we can equip stuff to our shield hand. So equip weapon, if is equipable is not our sword hand, then we don't want to equip the weapon, basically create this. So now we fix that. Let's press play again, see if everything worked. There you go. Can get the shield, and then it's still being equipped. Let's see what our item database is saying here. Go to the item database. Oh, so okay, so the sword and the shield are both set to sword hand, so we want to equip this to the shield hand. And now it should not be created for the sword, and we will not see it anymore when we attack somebody. Let's get the shield. There you go. Attack a little bit. Perfect. And we don't see the shield anymore being equipped here. Okay. So that's good. So one interesting thing that we can do now is that we have to do basically is we have to figure out a way to change the order of the sword and the shield as well. Basically, change the sorting order, because you can see here the sword is in the background, which is fine for the up animation, but for the down animation we actually want to have the sword in the foreground. So we need to have a way, and this animation is special basically, and the right as well, because we need to be able to change it mid-animation, because the first frame of the sword should be behind the character and then the rest should be in front of it. And the same here, it should start out in front of the character and then end up behind the character. So we need a way to change the sorting order of the shield and the sword. In order to do that, let's see first. So our visuals is, so our main character, the visuals for our main character, it is on the sorting layer characters, and then I set it in the order in layer to 100. So this way I can set stuff to lower than 100 if it's behind the character and higher than 100 if it's in front of the character, which should be simple enough. And I use 100 because then I have different steps along the way as well, because later maybe there's some collision later between the sword and the shield actually if they are both visible. So this way we can figure out on which layer to set them so they can be ordered correctly as well. Okay, so let's create a new method in our animation listener. And our animation listener, just as a quick refresher, it's a component that is on the same game object as our animator. And this allows us to create these animation events basically. So for the attack, let's do the attack down. We have a couple different animation events. On attack started, hide weapon here. So on attack started, which also shows the weapon, and then we attack, and then we want to hide the weapon in this frame again because the last frame is basically a transition back to idle, so the weapon is invisible already. And yes, and in order to create these events, basically you can click on the arrow up here and then you can select a function, and those functions are defined by us. Basically, they're defined by any component that is on the same game object as the animator. Which means we can just go to our animation listener and create a new method here. And up until now, all our methods were simply triggers basically, and they didn't have any parameters. But your method can have simple parameters. Actually, they can only have one parameter, and of certain type. Basically, I think you can use string, float, and integer. I'm not quite sure on that, but I know for a fact that you can use integer. So let's add a new method here and call it set sorting order of weapon, and then we have one integer here. And then later we want to do the same with the shield, but I don't think that I'll be doing that on stream because it's basically just replicating what we do with the sword, so it's not very interesting to see on stream, I guess. Okay, so set sorting order of weapon. And then we need to pass this on to our view, because the view is handling the weapon. So we basically recreate the same function in our view. So we can call it here, pass on the parameter, and so now that we created this method with the one parameter, we can go to our weapon. Let's see which layer the weapon is on right now. Where do I have my items? Here. So let's go to the sword, the visuals object of the sword. So it's on characters, and then on the order in layer is basically 1. And if you remember, the order in layer for the character is 100. So whenever we want to have it in front of the character, we put it to 200. And if we want to have it behind the character, we put it to 0 or to 1. Alright. So let's go here, set weapon active. And basically what we're going to do here is, so set sorting order of weapon, and so we need to set the sorting order in a sprite renderer, because the sprite renderer has the functionality for sorting attached to it. But our weapon parent doesn't have a sprite renderer. The sprite renderer is further down. So basically what we're going to do is we check if there is a sprite renderer. And we can do this by calling weapon parent dot get component in children. So Unity looks through all the children for us and looks for the first occurrence of a sprite renderer, and if it finds anything, it returns the sprite renderer. And this, actually, let's call it get components in children, because I want to have it flexible enough so that later on we can create weapons that have multiple different renderers, maybe. So maybe the weapon has some effects that is rotating around a staff, or a fireball that is rotating around fire staff or something. So maybe we have multiple different sprite renderers there. So I'm calling get components in children. I get an array back with all the sprite renderers that we found, and then I want to iterate over all the sprite renderers. Sprite renderers length, and then for each one I want to set the sorting order to the value that we passed on. Alright, the question here, are you making a whole Zelda game on Steam? Well, I'm not quite sure yet. For now it's basically just a tutorial series, but I really like the game so far, and also the art. So I thought about it. I actually thought about doing something kind of like Binding of Isaac, maybe, because that is there's tons of interesting coding stuff going on with games like that, with randomly generated games, and not a lot of level design, which is good because this is supposed to be a coding tutorial. So I think I'm going to, once we get to a point where we can actually create a little bit of gameplay, interesting gameplay, I'm going to create a random level generator so we can play the game over and over again and see how stuff like that works. And I think at that point it might be viable to put it on Steam even, because the thing is I'm paying Jesse to create all this cool art, so stuff like this doesn't come for free, especially high quality stuff like this, and I also have some very high quality music for this. So it would be nice to maybe put it on Steam and get a little bit of the money back that I invested in it, and then I can reinvest even more into this project and make it bigger and stuff like that. So hopefully we can get something like this going, but for now we are pretty early in the development. I think this is week 7 or 8, so we've been working a little bit over 14 hours on it, so it's very early. So, but I think already it looks pretty cool. And so what we did now is we iterated over all of those. And there's one suggestion. I'm a little surprised that you don't use for each instead of a for loop, since it's easier to read. Yeah, you're right. In this case, it might be better to use a for each loop. I mean, basically a for each loop is way better to iterate over everything there. I usually go with for loops because I like to have this I variable to access the items directly, but that is just a leftover of coding with multiplayer stuff, because it's in those cases it's necessary to know on which index you have and stuff like that. But you're right, for this we can simply use the for each loop, for each sprite renderer in our array sprite renderers, and then we can set the value. Okay, so let's set this up. Let's go open our animation layer again. And select our character, and then we go to our attack animation. So let's start with attack up. Now we have a problem. We ran into a problem that we ran in last time as well, and I wanted to research what the solution is. And the problem is that you cannot create multiple events on the same frame. But you can. You see, it's working, and it's adding a new event here. But the second one is not being called. And I researched this, and this is actually a bug in Unity. And there's already a bug report sent out to them, and they have it on their roadmap. So it's hopefully gets fixed at some point. But for now, we have to find some workarounds. And one very simple workaround that I found is we can just increase the speed of the animation. So right now you can see this is set to 20. So let's set this to 40. So it's twice as fast. But then we basically just telling, so each frame should be displayed for 2 frames here. So it's basically the same as the speed of 20, and then each frame is displayed just one for one step of the event. But then we can create a second event on the same frame basically. Let's make sure that those are set back to where they belong. So this is just a workaround. It's not very nice because there's still a little bit of a delay here, but I think it works close enough, and we just have to wait for Unity to fix this issue for us. So let's go to create a new item event here, and then for this we set sorting order of weapon. This is the method that we just created with an integer here. And then you can see here for the parameters we can set the integer. So for this, because this weapon should be behind the character here, let's set it to 0, which is fine. And it remains at 0 for the whole animation. Then for the attack down, we actually want to do the same thing. So let's set the animation sample rate to 40 here, and then spread this out. So we can call multiple events here as well. Move those back. And then what do we have here? No function for here, and on attack started, and then for this create a new event here. And for this we want to set the sort in front of the character, and the character is at layer 100, so we're just setting the sort to layer 200 in this case. And I think I do it the other way around. I want to set the sorting layer first, because even though it will be very quickly, since the animation event, if the animation event is on the second frame, there can be a small stutter where the sort can be behind the character for a little bit and then come to the front. So I want to make sure that the visuals are set up correctly first, and then we call on attack started secondly. So so you guys are still talking about the for each thing here. So sometimes for each can be more efficient depending on compiler, but I think it doesn't come for C#. Yeah, and for the game that we're creating, efficiency is not our primary concern actually. So code readability is much more important for us now, especially since this is a tutorial project. If you're deleting entries in the loop, an ascending for loop is going to give you pain. It's true, but well, you have to remember to descend the iterator as well if you do that. So basically the issue here, if you have a for loop with the number, so let's say you have a list of 10 and you're going through the number, and at 5 you delete an entry. If your iterator value isn't changed at this point, you're basically going to skip one element, because the element 5 is being deleted, and so there are only 9 left, and so the for loop goes back over and starts with a new and raises the index to 6. So but the one that was at 6 previously now got bumped to 5 because 5 was deleted, so you're going to skip one. So you have to remember to decrease the iterator by 1 as well. But the problem is, if you do that with a for each loop, you're going to have a problem as well, because it's going to say there's a directory mismatch issue thing. So I think deleting stuff out of while looping over it, you always have to be careful a little bit. If you want to delete, you can go in descending order. That's true. That might be another solution for it. Yeah, but I mean, you're right. So that's what I said previously. Readability is much more important for this project here, but the issues that you raise are important ones. So deleting stuff out of a for loop while you're iterating over it, you always have to think twice about it if you're not creating a bug here, because it's very easy to forget that you created a bug here. So yeah, it's a good point to think about. So where are we at? Attack up, we changed this, and this goes to 0, okay, and then for the attack down we set this to 200, which is good. And now for the interesting animations where we want to change this mid-frame. So I also want to increase the sample rate here, so we can have multiple animation events on the same frame. Okay, so for this, let's actually create a sword here so we can see what happens. So let's put the sword to the weapon hand here. Okay, so here we want to definitely start out behind the character. Oh, so we have to be careful here because the movement of the sword is being interpolated. How does it look? I think it's too fast, you can't really tell anyways, but still you can see here that the sword is basically moving. Well, this is not very nice, but what we can do is if we select change our animation view from dope sheet to curves, you can see if we open up the position and the rotation here, you can see the curves. And we actually want to set the keyframes up so they are not interpolated, but for the right tangent. So basically for what's going to the right here, we want to say that this is... Actually we can do it for both tangents as well, so this is constant. So basically there is no interpolation going on here. And we have to do the same thing for the rotation in a second as well. So both tangents are constant, and this way Unity does not create a linear interpolation between the frames, but basically just stays at the same value until a new value is requested by a new frame here. So you can see did I do it right? I have to do it for this one as well. So let's set all the frames to constant here. Can I select multiple? Yes, I can select multiple. Very good. And then let's go back to rotation, and we want to do the same for rotation as well, but I'm afraid to do that because I kind of remember that there's an issue with this. I ran into this issue before, so let's see. If we right click this, both tangent, and make this constant as well. Oh, it works. This is actually how it's supposed to look. I mean, this one could be a little bit farther out, I guess. Oh, now I did it on the wrong frame. Delete those. No, 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 no. No, I'm destroying everything. Okay, so this looks better. So now Unity does not interpolate between the animation, but basically just waits till a new keyframe comes, which looks like we want it. Because we have a keyframe animation, this is what we want. Okay, so, but you can see the issue now here. So our sword starts out here, and I think I messed something up. No, I just scrolled. No, didn't scroll. So it starts out in the back, and then later, so as it goes around the character, now it should be in front of the character, and especially at this frame it's very visible that it should be in front of the character. So what we're going to set up here is we set up an animation event, a new animation event, and we want to set this to 200, and I don't want to forget to set this to 0 in the beginning. So set this to 0 here, and then to 200 in the middle of the animation, so it should be in front of the character. It's not working in the editor because the events are not being called here, but it should work at runtime. So let's do the same thing for our right animation. Let's make all the keyframes constant again for position and for rotation. Set the sample rate to 40. Let's go back to the dope sheet here. And then give every frame, every keyframe 2 animations, and move this over here. And then do the same thing here. So we want to start out in front of the character. So create an event and set the sorting layer to 200. And then later on, if it passes on, we want to end up behind the character. So at this point, we want to set it to behind the character. Set this to 0. Okay. Let's see if this works and we didn't mess anything up. So remove the preview sort again. Let's not maximize it. I want to zoom in. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. So get the sort. If we attack to upwards, it's behind the character. If we attack downwards, it's still behind. Okay. So let's debug this, see what happens here. Something is not working correctly. You guys are giving some good advice in the code. So there's the discussion if coming from Java, if it's better to learn C# or C++. And I also agree that C# is it should be easy to learn when you're coming from Java. It has many of the same structures and stuff like that, and yeah. So let's see what went wrong here. Let's actually put some debug code in here to see if our methods get called properly. Sorting order. And I also want to change the time of our project. So let's go to project settings and to time. And then I want to do the time scale to basically want to see this in slow motion. So the time scale to 0.25. So the game is in slow motion right now. Get our sort. Oh, we're setting the timescale back to 1 after we're getting the sort. Okay, but I can still set this back to our... Okay, and let's see. It is being called. So 200 is being called, but it's not set on our sort prefab. So let's see. So the event system is working. Let's see how many sprite renderers we get. And then also what sprite renderers we have. Debug log. Are you German? Yes, I am German. Is the mobile market profitable or too many people right now? It's difficult. I don't think it's an easy market to get into, especially... I mean, there's still the possibility of having that breakout hit, but it's very, very unpredictable. And there are so many companies pumping so much marketing money into mobile games that it's very hard for small teams to stand out. If you have a really, really good game like Monument Valley, for example, that was created with a small team, but they also put in a lot of... they were basically pumped up by many, many different companies, like Unity themselves, for example, because it was such a beautiful Unity game. Unity put this on their banners and said Monument Valley is one of our games. So they got a lot of marketing from them, but it's really hard. Making games for profit is kind of like playing the lottery. I would disagree with that. It's not really playing the lottery. That you can make some safe bets, but you can also see over and over again that experienced teams don't make any money at all. So it's a little bit like making, but the thing is you can make lots of mistakes, resulting in you creating a game and nobody playing it. And if you're an inexperienced developer, you will make a lot of those mistakes, which is fine. You should make them to learn how it's done. But I think, so what worked for me is that I just don't expect my games to sell at all. I have other income streams on the side. So my first game in the first year didn't sell anything on Big Fish Games. And then after a year we got greenlit and got on Steam, and luckily we earned a little bit of money. But not enough to give us all the money back that we invested in terms of time into the game. So, but we learned a lot, but since we didn't need the game to earn us any money, we had jobs on the side and we earned money that way. That wasn't an issue. Some teams that I see, some young teams often, they go all in with their first game and it's make or break for them. And the thing is, you're going to make mistakes with your first game, and you're going to make mistakes with the next 10 games as well. So, for me at least, my strategy is that I don't expect my games to sell at all. And then if they do, it's a nice bonus and I can reinvest that money. But if they don't, I'm not lost and I can continue making games. Okay, so we wanted to still check what is wrong with our code here. This is weird. It's being called, and it's also being called on the right object. Why is it not working? Let's go to slow-mo again. Time, let's make this very slow. And now it's in front of the character. I mean, this is actually correct. So why is it not working for those here? Oh, I see. Okay, so I see what the issue is. So the code actually works. The issue is actually what the order of the events that I'm calling, and what I did previously is I said I wanted to call the sorting layer order first, and then call on attack started. But the issue here is that on attack started activates the object. So if I call set sorting order of weapon before I activate the objects, there's nothing to I don't have any objects on any sprite renderers active to set the sorting layer. So this way it doesn't get applied here, but it gets applied mid-animation. So let's change these around and see if there's actually the flickering issue, and if not, we just use it like that. So do this for every thing on attack started first, and then set the sorting layer. We could also create on attack started and have a sorting layer in there for the weapon, but then one method does several different things, so that is not very nice. But in this case, we might need to do it because the animation system is bugged and we cannot create 2 different animations on the same frame. Okay, let's see if this fixed the issue. Let's make sure that the time is back to normal. Project settings time, set this back to normal, and let's see. Get the sort, and then it's behind the character here, it's in front of the character here, and then I'm not sure if you see this on stream because it's very fast, but basically it's behind here and it starts out in front of the character. So this is what we want to achieve. It looks good. And here it starts out in front, so to the left there's still a small issue. So let's see if I forgot something to attack left. Let's go attack left. I activate it first and I set it to behind. Interesting. So the order of the events is correct. Let's see if they're being called. Or what is the issue for the attack left? It's being set to 0. Okay, so now we actually see the flickering issue. So in the very first frame here, basically, the sword is in front, and then it's being set to being in the back in the second frame, actually. So this is what I was afraid of. So I think I'm just going to change the onAttack started to also have a sorting value, an integer. And so this method is doing 2 different things. I actually don't like this a lot. It's easier. Your code is more easier to, or in my opinion, it's easier to read your code if every method does one simple thing, and the method is named properly, describing what it's doing. So having a method do, in this case, actually 3 different things. It's calling show weapon as well. It's not too nice, but yeah, this is the problem of the animation system. So we expand our onAttack started to include a parameter sorting order, and then we basically call sorting order in here as well. Okay, so this way we have to make sure that we change it after it compiles. So we don't have to have this second frame here, but onAttack started set to 0 is actually correct for this one. Attack right, we want to start out at 200, and then for attack down we want to start out at 200 as well. And for attack up, we want to start out at 0. Okay. So now we shouldn't have the 1 frame flickering of our sword. Get the sword, attack to the left. Yeah, and it works properly now. Good. Let's remove our debug stuff here. We don't need that anymore. So I can't really see the animations fully here on Twitch. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm getting drop frames detected from Expert as well. My computer is actually not fast enough to capture full HD monitor and play the game and all of that and stream. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a new computer at some point. So it will be a little stuttery on the frame. It will be smoother on YouTube. But since the attack animation is very fast anyway, it's really just always just a split second. So, web development. Why are you guys talking about web development? If you're a web dev, you can even use JavaScript in Unity. It's true. I mean, it's called Unity script, but it's a variant of JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, it should be very easy to get into Unity. Proton Gaming. If you're front-end web dev, then making HTML5 browser game could also be an option, but it's definitely easier to get started in Unity. Yeah, I'm sure there are also good HTML5 engines out there, and Unity is an HTML5 engine as well, so you can export to HTML5. But it's still early in development, so it's still in beta, I think. Gotta go, Ollie. I'll be back soon. Yeah. See you next time, Bob. Thanks for coming. Alright, so the sword is working properly, and our attack animations are working properly, and the pickup animations are fixed as well. So this is basically, we can cross out. Can we cross out here? Yes. So we're done with the pickup animation fixes. So let's continue with our bat anime. We actually have 2 new sprite sheets for that. So let's go to the sprites here. And yeah, you can really, when I'm streaming, I can really feel that my computer is too slow, because the compiling takes a lot of time, and switching between programs takes a bit of time as well. So it's, well, let's go to enemies. So we have our bat here. We have to set this up. So first of all, let's put this to 64 pixels per unit as every other sprite as well. And then also we want to set this sprite to a multiple sprite, because in this one image there are actually 5 animations. So we have the idle animation on the very left here, and then we have 4 different flying animations. So we want to slice those up in a grid as well, as always. So let's click on slice and then set it to grid, and the size should be 128. I'm not sure. Yeah, so 128 by 128, and now we have 5 different slices here. And we also have a new effect animation. Let's put this to 64 as well, and multiple. And we have a Zelda-like death sprite effect for our characters. So whenever an enemy gets destroyed, there's this slashing effect and then a small poof. But the order is wrong. I actually messed those up. Oh, let me fix this properly. This might get confusing otherwise. Let's go to Photoshop real quick. And change the order around here. So let me make Photoshop smaller so you guys can see it properly. There you go, this is better. Okay, so let's make sure that we have the grid set up properly at 128 by 128. And I want to change the order of this one. This one should move over here. So we have 128, 265, 3 something, and then 512. Perfect. And then everything should go to the left. So move everything back by 128 pixels. 128, there you go. Okay, so this is the correct order of the animation. You can see that your computer is too slow if even saving an image file takes a second. Okay, so now we can go back to the sprite editor, and now it's in the correct order actually. So slice it on a grid, 128, and then we have all our animations here. Perfect. So let's create an animation for this, and we call this enemy death just like the image. And let's actually see how this looks. Open up the animation window, press play here. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen this in moving or yet. It's a little fast, so let's go back to, let's say, 9 maybe. I think the slashing is fine, but the other ones are a little fast, so let's make sure that those are being displayed a little longer. This is I think this might look fine. So 2 slashes and then an explosion. That's cool. Is a 3D game more difficult to make than a 2D game? It's hard to say, really. I mean, creating assets for 3D is a little bit more difficult, in my opinion. Especially if you're a programmer and just want to make temporary art, you have to know a 3D tool to create those assets, whereas in a 2D game you can simply draw some stick figures and test your code before you get a graphics guy in to make this beautiful for you. So it might be easier to prototype in 2D. From a gameplay perspective, I don't think there's too much of a difference. I mean, you have to think about one dimension additionally, but it's really, yeah. I guess if you're making your first game, you should really think about how can you make this game really, really fast. And 2D might be a better option in that case. Unless you're a very good 3D artist and just want to make sure to get some interactivity for your assets. In that case, 3D might be a better option. So think about what you can do faster. Okay, so we have the 2D animation here, which is good, but we're going to use that later. And then set up the animation for our bat as well. So I'm going to use all of those, but so calling this bat idle. And then we duplicate that and call this bat flying. Let's go to our animator here for the bat, and actually we do this as always. We create a parent visuals object, a child object rather, and then the parent objects is empty because we're going to put all the movement code on the parent here. And then in the visuals we have bat idle, and let's have bat flying in here as well. So we can have those, and then for the idle we remove the flying frames, and then for the flying we remove the idle frame and move them back. Let's play this. It's pretty good. Is it correct? Yeah, it's in the correct order. It's a little fast. Let's see what 10 gives us. Maybe 9. I think 9 is a little nicer, so we can appreciate the animation much more. Let's see how it looks next to our character actually. And I want to set the flying animation as default. So this way when I press play, it plays the flying animation. It should at least. But it's not, which is interesting. see what I did wrong here. So bed idle is this, and then bed flying is this, which is fine. Why is this? Oh, the animator is disabled. That doesn't help. There you go. Alright. So there we have a flying bat. Looks pretty good. Okay, let's set this back to idle because it's, of course, idling all the time. And now we want to create some behavior for this. And now we get into a section that actually benefits from our pattern that we used before, our model view control pattern, because we can reuse much of the movement code that we created for our character actually, and the only thing that we change is the controller part. So the movement is the same. It has a speed and it has a direction where it moves to, but the controller will not be listening for character input, but the controller is more like the AI that sees if the character moves. So let's continue with our enemy here. So what we can actually do is we can attach many of the different scripts that we have on our main character. So we can create the character movement model, and we can create the character movement view as well actually. And then our animator is here. And we don't have a weapon or shield parents, so we just leave them empty, but we have to check so we don't have a problem there. So let's make sure that if the weapon parent is null, then we don't want to do anything here. And it's the same for our, in this set sorting of order of weapons. The rest is fine. And for the equip stuff, we also don't want to do this. So if we don't have a weapon parent, we don't equip this. If we don't have a pickup item parent, we don't want to do this. Okay, so we have to make sure that some of the parameters that we are using in our animator, that they are set up. So we're using these ones, but we don't need those. Update picking up animation. Update direction. We don't need those. We need the is moving. I'm not sure if there's an issue if we don't have those set up. Let's see. Go to our animator and set up a boolean called is moving, and we use that to create the transitions between idle and walking. And so set the duration to 0, and then the condition is if moving is true, then we go to flying, and the same thing if is moving is false, then we go back to idle. Let's see if we get an error here because we don't have the other parameters set up. Yeah. Parameter does not exist. There are a couple different issues here. So let's see. So we don't have a rigid body 2D. Why do we need that? For our movement. That's fine. So our character Lunk has a box collider 2D and a rigid body 2D, so we need those. Rigid body 2D gravity scale is 0. Let's see if I set up everything correctly here. Gravity scale to 0, fixed angle. Okay. Let's make sure that the fixed angle is fixed as well. And then we can have a circle collider 2D for our bat. That should be enough. It's a little offset to the bottom here. So that's actually a good collision area for this. And well, actually let's make it a little bit smaller. Usually I make the collisions for enemies smaller than the visual objects, because in that case you have those situations, especially in 2D games, where you really see if you collided or not. You can almost collide, and visually you already collided, and the player knows, alright, okay, I'm done now, but the collision is not triggering, so you have this moment where you said, whew, I got off lucky here. So I rather have this feeling for the player, so it's intense, and then, ooh, I got lucky, I should have collided, but I don't really, so I got away, and it's a positive feeling, rather than have the collision pixel perfect and very punishing. So, but this is just a design choice. So make it a little bit smaller, so in this way the visuals can actually collide, but you still don't get hit, and you have these close shave moments, basically. Okay, let's press play again. And then we need to set up all the other parameters, even though we're not using them. So we have, let's see, what were there? We have a direction X here. Direction Y. And then the Boolean is picking up two-handed. I will think about if I like this. I'm not quite sure if I like this, because if I add a new parameter to our main character, I will have to add it here as well. So I'm not quite sure if later on this might screw me over. But for now, this is actually pretty cool, because now I can reuse much of the movement script that I created for the character. Okay, so we don't have any arrows anymore. Let's go into the visuals object here. This moving is actually set to true right now. Okay. So let's go back to the movement model and see why. We have to set up a speed. So let's see why. Because we're setting the direction to a value at the start here, which is not what I want to do in the model. Actually, I did that because I wanted to have this for our character, so when you press play it looks to the bottom. So let's make this to the put this here into our character. We set the correct direction on start. So now the directions should be set to 0 in the beginning, and the bat should actually be in its idle animation. And then I can create the AI. So yeah, that's working. So the bat is set to idle right now. And oh, I can move it around. That's funny. I don't want to do that. So let's make sure we can collide. I'm basically just setting the bat to that the bat is a trigger. Because I want to trigger the hit animation for the character, but I still want to them to pass each other. Okay. And I also want to have the bat, because it's flying most of the time when we collide, the bat is in front of the character. So let's make sure the bat is on character layer, and then it's at 110, so it's below the sword. Oh, let's make it above everything, because this way it's only sometimes below the sword. It should be above the character though, because it's flying. I love the bat, don't kill it. Well, we can start by making the bat fly around a little bit, and then So let's create a little AI for our bat here. And for now, let's just make it so that if we get close to the bat, it just flies away a little bit. Just very simple. In order to do that, we need a trigger area, which our character can get into, and that triggers the behavior of the bat that it flies away. So we create a new child object. We call it proximity trigger. And then we add a circle collider to this as well. I'll make sure that this is in the center. And then we can have a radius of 3. So whenever the character gets in here, and this should be a trigger as well, whenever our main character gets into this radius, we want to fly away. Okay, and now we need to create the control script. And we call this character base control, character keyword control, character, let's just make it specific, character bat control. I could make it a little bit more, well, I can do that later. For now we just use it for the bat. But I could I could name it after the behavior actually. So in this case it should be fleeing, so I could say character flee control, and then I could reuse it on different enemies as well later on. Okay, so let's have a boolean in here that tells us is character in range, and then we have a method set character in range is in range, and then in our update, let's make sure that this is actually a base control, and then in our update movement, or update direction rather. So it's a vector to direction. It starts off at 0, so we don't want to do anything. And then if the character is in range, we want to get a reference to the character. Let's have character in range. Set character in range to a game object. And then we check if the character in range is not null, because we want to calculate where the character is and then fly away from him. So in order to do that, we calculate our position minus the character in range position. This is the vector 3 though. No. Can we have it as a vector 2? Yeah, okay. And then we want to normalize it. And then send this to our setDirection method, which is defined in our base control. And it sets up the communication with the movement model. So that is all actually. No, this is not all. We need to set up the trigger as well. So the trigger is a new component that we put on the proximity trigger. Let's create a new folder here. Folder enemies, character back control. and then we call this the bad proximity trigger. And in this trigger we're looking for the on trigger enter event. Trigger enter 2D. 2D. I always forget this. How's this spelled? With a capital D. And then on trigger exit as well. And then we check, I think our character should have a player tag attached to him, I think. Let's see. So, yes, so our character Lung has set up a tag called player, so we can use that to check if the collider tag is player. And then we also need a reference in to our character bad control, to our control script, which is in our parent somewhere. So let's use get component in parent, and then we can set character in range to collider game object, and if the collider exits, then we set character in range to null again. Okay, so let's see if that worked. And since we're reusing the movement stuff, if the bat is moving, it should also automatically play the movement animation, because we were reusing the same code that we did before. So let's see. Let's get close here. And nothing is happening because I haven't attached the script yet, which is not helpful. So set up the control script, set up the proximity trigger. Or close to it. Still nothing is happening. Okay. Oh, I set up the wrong. So the proximity triggers should of course have the proximity trigger component. Later on, when it needs to be more advanced, is the AI going to be a finite state machine? Yeah, and the cool part is that we can use the Unity's animation system, animator system, to do that. So you can see the animator here, this is actually a finite state machine. So we're going to use that for our more complex AI later, because the cool part of this is we can have these debug values here, so you can actually see in which state our AI is and stuff like that. So let's see if this worked, and there it goes. And then it flies away. Very, very slowly. Okay, let's make this a little faster. Otherwise it would be a very inefficient bat. Cool. It's basically just moving away from us here. Oh, there's a bug there, but yeah, it should be above all objects. So let's put the visuals not on the character layer, but on the high objects layer, so it flies above the trees as well. I think it's back to slow again. Unity, why you not save my changes? Let's go to the bat. Set this to 5, and then actually set the bat over here so we can make it fly over the trees. And then it flies away. Okay. But this is of course a very, very simple AI. The bat in Zelda actually behaves a little bit differently. So whenever you get in range, it starts flying, but not away from you. It starts flying in a small circle-like pattern, and it attacks you. So let's make it differently. So when we get in range, let's not make it fly away from us. Let's make it fly towards us. Where is it? Why is it hiding from me? Character. Oh, I renamed it. Or removed it or whatever. So it's closed. So we actually want to do this the other way around. Calculate the direction towards the character. And then it should actually be a little bit slower than us, so we can move away from it again. But let's go. Whoa. We're getting attacked by a bat here. That's nice. Let's make a prefab from this bat and create more bats. I want to make it a little slower. And then in Zelda it still behaves differently, so it doesn't quite go back to idle again when you're out of range, but it flies for a couple of seconds. If you go in range, it flies for a couple of seconds and then goes back to idle. So but for now it flies towards us, and then we can move out of range again, and then it goes back to idle. Whoa! This is pretty cool. Alright. So now we need a couple different things. So we actually need to collide with the bat as well. So we have to think about the AI that we want for our bat now. Let's make it so that it doesn't really matter if you're out of range again. Or should it? It should. It should. It shouldn't. Now I have to. Let's actually. I think for now, let's just make the collision, and then the AI. I will record a short video of how the bats in Zelda actually work for next time, so we can try to analyze it and recreate it exactly. But what we need to do anyway is the interaction with our character. So when our character gets into this circle here, then we want to collide with the character. So for this we create a script. Enemy character collision, because we're going to need that script for other enemies as well, so I make it pretty generic. And let's make sure that this script is added to our bat. Move up and move up. So this is added to a different object now, so the proximity trigger is added to the proximity trigger object which has the big circle here, and then the character collision component is added to the main game object which has the smaller circle here. So they will basically trigger at different times. So we can use onTrigger enter here as well for the character collision. Void on trigger enter collider 2D, collider, and then we do the same spiel. If the collider tag is the player, then we want to do something. For now we just collide. Let's see if this works. And then we also have some frames from Jesse. I think I added them already to the let me quickly check if I have the get hit animation as well in here. So in our attack sprite sheet, show this in Explorer. This looks promising. Go to preview. Yeah. So in our attack sprite sheet, we actually already have the get hit frames. So we can do that as well. Cool. This is not triggering. Why is it not triggering? Did I apply this? Where are my other bats? Enemy character collision. It's on here. It's on trigger enter 2D. Always the 2D stuff. So attack me and then collide. It actually gets triggered fairly early, or am I wrong? Let's move a little closer. It gets triggered for both. Interesting. Interesting. So let's see what happens if I actually create a collision trigger and make that of radius 0.4. Was that our radius? 3.5. Alright, and remove this from our parent here. Remove this. And then I want to create the collision trigger here. Enemy character collision. Let's see if that works better. The problem is because the character has a rigid body, so the onTrigger enter event gets called from the rigid body as well for all the colliders in your character hierarchy. So yeah, this works better. So now, because we're now getting the onTrigger enter event from not from the rigid body, but from the collider, we basically just get it for the collider that we want, and not for both of them. Okay, cool. So our collide event is working. And what we want to do on collide is, first of all, we want to go back to idle. That is something the bats do. And then we want to push the character back a little bit. And we have to create a small system for that. And I want to make it flexible enough, the push the character back system, because later on there can be blocks in the level design as well, that if you move towards them, they're basically like flipper blocks, and if you collide with them, you get pushed back and stuff like that. And if you hit stuff and they're in a specific state, some enemies, they push you back. So yeah, so let's do that as well. So first of all, let's do the go back to idle. For that, I need a reference for our character bat control. Components in parent character bat control, and then we create a method here, public on hit character. and then we just go out of range for now. So on hit character. It's not quite how the bat works in Zelda, but for now it's a good start. So we go back to idle, and we also want to make sure that we pass on the game object for the character, because now we can find character movement model from our character and create a method here called public void push character. And so there should be a push direction and a time, how long. And let's put this, so we can call this method, but we want to have these variables public. So push strength, and then float push time. We have those public, and then the direction is basically calculated like we calculated the direction before as well. So basically the character should be pushed away from the enemy here. We want to make sure that this direction is normalized again, so when we multiply the strength with it, it's always the same. So normalize the direction here. Push character into our direction, multiply this with the push strength that we set up, we can set up in the editor, and then we want to set the push time as well. Send this over here. Okay, let's set these values to random values that we just make up for now, and then we check it later if those values make sense. So push strength, let's do 4, and it's only for 1/5 of a second. And in our movement model we have to code this, that we get pushed back now. So let's add 2 values here. We also want to store the push direction, and we want to store the, let's make this consistent, private float push time. And basically what we're going to do is we reduce the push time every frame and basically push the character back. Oh wait. I think we have to do that in our movement. So we have a public bool is being pushed, and then basically just check if the push time is greater than 0. And we use that in our update movement. We're saying if is being pushed is true, then we want to move the character differently than normal. Body velocity. Just basically set this to our push direction. Since this is the velocity of the rigid body, it takes care of the delta time stuff, so it's frame independent. So if being pushed is true, then we want to set basically just move the character in the push direction, and it doesn't matter what the character the player is moving in. And we also have to reduce the push time every frame so it goes back to 0. So we have a fixed update, and we create a new update here as well. Call this update push time. Basically what we simply want to do is we want to reduce the push time until it's 0 every frame. So I basically just use move towards here and make it so it moves towards 0 every frame. So let me put this here. So what I'm doing here, move towards, is basically a method that checks where's the value at right now, the current value, what is the target value, where you want to go, and how much do you want to go there. And since I'm using time delta time here, basically what I'm saying is that I want to go 1 whole unit every second. So since I'm setting the push time in the bat, saying, for example, we set this to 0.2, it basically in 0.2 seconds the push time will move back to 0, and then you can move again. Let's see if this works as expected. It should freeze the character but not time too. No? Well, basically what we're doing is we are freezing the character by using a different path here. Basically it doesn't really matter what the character is doing, what the user is pushing, because we're basically just moving him along the push direction, and we're not even going to giving the player the control to move the character at this point. The is frozen is different, is used differently. So basically what you see here, if the character is frozen, the velocity is set to 0, and then we return and we don't do anything else. But we still want to move the character, but not in the direction that the user is moving them in for this. Okay, so let's see how this works for now. And it will look a little weird because we're getting pushed back and then we will walk in that direction basically, which is not so. Nothing is happening. Okay, yes, something is happening, but that's what I'm saying. Basically, something is not set up. Okay, I forgot to set up some reference. Let's see. On hit character. Oh, so character in range is wrong actually. So the character that we get here is being pushed back. Okay. And my computer is really slowing down right now. But it's fine. It's time actually to close this off anyway. So let's see. Let's go there, and nothing is happening. Let's see what the problem is here. Go to this bat. So the push strength, let's set this to 10. Let's set the push time to 2 just to see if anything is happening at all. It might be that my computer is lagging too much right now, so the 0.2 seconds don't get registered enough. Nope. So in our bat control, if we hit the character, let's see if push character is actually... Oh, yeah, right. So in push character we're not setting the values, which of course makes it difficult to work correctly. So we want to set the push direction here to the push direction that we get, and we want to set the push time to the time that we get as well. Let's compile this. And then we get pushed back. Nice. By a lot, actually. Okay, so let's use the previous values again, but actually the 10 is not too bad. Let's make it 0.2 and 15. Are we going to make dungeon mechanics as well in this game? Keys, doors, chests, and bosses? Yes, all of the above. So let's get pushed. It's still way too far. So let's just push 0.5 seconds, 0.05 actually. It's better. No, it's a little too subtle. Okay, so the only thing that I still want to do very quickly now is, because we already have the animations, and I want to basically play the animation that we're getting hit. So let's see if we have them in here already. Yes. Okay, so let's set up the animations for that. Hit down. And we get 4 of these. So we have hit up, hit left, and I think hit left should be enough actually. So let's go to the animator for our main character. And then we create a new blend tree, just like we did for the other ones. We call this hit. And then we can have the hit up. Why is this not working? I think something I messed up here. Let's create those again. Hit down, please. I added them to the object 0 yet. Okay, so this is not what I wanted to do. Did I do it for canvas as well? Yes, I did it for canvas as well. Alright. So let's add them back to here. Are they set up properly now? No, they're not. I want to create this animation, please. For a new game object, exactly. Because now I can use them. Why can't I use them? What is going on? Oh, damn it. Okay, yeah, it's getting a little bit late. I'm making stupid mistakes now. So I have a hit down, I have a hit up, and I have a hit left in here. So the blend tree is a 2D blend tree, and I have to drag the animations into the motion fields here. So it's a 2D blend tree using direction X and Y. Hit down, hit up. Can I mirror them? Yes, I can mirror the animation here. This is good. So I can create the hit left, and I can use the hit left again and select mirror. So this is hit right. But I can't do this for 2D stuff. I think I can do this for 2D stuff. Okay, so let's just mirror this manually in Photoshop. Basically, layer via cut, duplicate this, move it down by 128, and then mirror this. Let's save it back. Okay. So now that I did this, I basically have to go to my sprite editor again and make sure that the new slice is being created. Oh no, no. Let's revert again. I basically create this manually, because otherwise all the names get mixed up for me. So the position is, so we need 128 by 128. The position is 640 is the Y position, and the X position is 768. And this is lung hit 4. Let's make this 3, and then this is 4, and apply this back. Okay. So I've hit up, down, left, and what's going on? What is going on? This is lung hit 3, please. So I have lung hit 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. And I want to have a hit right as well. Go back to our lung layer here and the and make sure that we set up the hit right as well. So the hit down is position X is 0 and then -1, and we have 0 and 1, and then for left it's -1 and for right it's this. Yes, this works. Okay, so this is our hit animation. And basically we need a new parameter, boolean is hit, and from any state we go to is hit. And since we set those up now, we can go to our animation view and go and have all this hit down, up, left, right. And I use too many frames here, so let's make sure that for the hit down we're using the right frame. Hit down, hit up, hit left, and for hit right we have to use, I think, lung attack 3 was it. So this is hit right. Okay, so they're set up properly. Then for the transition, it doesn't have an exit time. It actually just should transition immediately. And then the condition is that is hit is set to true. And then if is hit is false, then we go back to idle. Also put this on a second layer, but I'm not sure if this works in 2D as well, so I have to check this. But okay, so we have is hit. If it's set to true, then we go into the hit animation. And oh, actually, well, I mixed something up, but I'll show you this first, and then I'll fix it. Okay, so now in the view, in the character movement view, we have to have a new method here, void update hit. And we basically just set bool is hit, and then we get this from the movement model. Oh yeah, is being pushed. Basically just getting the is being pushed variable and setting this to the is hit in the animator. So this should work. The only issue is that you'll see in a second. Let's see if everything works as expected. Get tons of errors. Yeah, this is the problem that I had before. The is hit now gets an error for the in the bad animator. So let's make sure. Can we check if we have this? Has state parameters yeah, we could, but then we have to iterate through all the parameters all the time. I don't like it. So let's just create it for now, and then later we separate them into different animators and stuff. Bool is hit, so we don't have this warning every frame. And do we get pushed? We are getting pushed. Let's increase the push duration so that we can see it better. So let's set the push duration to 1 for all our bats. And there you go. We're getting pushback. But we are still, so we can still set the direction basically of being pushed back, right? So when I push back and I change my direction, then the direction is set. So what I want to do is basically, if I'm being pushed back, then I want to override the direction that I get from the user. So up that direction. Movement model, get direction. So set direction, okay. We basically want to say if is being pushed, then the direction is set to the push direction, and we don't want to do anything else. So this way the user cannot change the direction, and if the character comes from whatever direction the character comes from, we're getting pushed in that direction. We play the right frame. And now the issue that I mentioned previously is that when I'm being pushed, basically now I'm being pushed up, so the up animation is being played. So actually the pushback animations actually should be reversed, because I'm getting pushed back and not moving in that direction. But this is a simple fix in our animator. Go to our hit blend tree again and just swap the values around. So 1 for down, -1 here, 1, -1, and then I'm not sure. I have to test these values while I'm not streaming, because my computer is lagging, so this short time frame that I'm getting pushed back is not reading properly if I play this now. Okay, so let's push back, and then we getting pushed in that direction. Okay, I mean there's still some polishing issues here when we get out of it, that we look in the wrong direction. I think we can fix that too, but I think for now this is actually pretty cool, and this is a good stopping point. We can get pushed around by those. Okay, so there's a question about resolution. Yeah, Unity takes care of it. You can see it in the editor even. So if I go to maximize, Unity just makes it bigger. The resolution in the assets that I have is high enough so that we it looks good at 180 resolution. That's why I set it up for that, for full HD basically. And but Unity scales it for us, so it's pretty simple. Okay. I think this is where I'm going to stop for today. Let's see if there are any more questions here. What's your opinion on broadcast message in solution like this, since you now have a reference to the bad component on the collision script, which you want to be generic? Broadcast message is fine, but I rather use abstract classes, just as in our interaction, for example. So for our scripts, objects, interactable. So in the interactable I have a base class, and the base class defines a virtual method called onInteract, and then each other method implements those onInteract with the different values. I usually rather do this than the broadcast message, but it works as well. What's your default resolution and how will it scale? Oh, we talked about that. Unity scales it for us. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for watching today. You can find all of this on my website, letscodegames.com, and there are links to the YouTube channel. There's a link to the Twitch channel. There's links to the GitHub, so you can actually get this code if you want to mess with it. You can get it from GitHub, and I will upload this video as always tomorrow once I finished processing it and cutting it a little bit. So I'll upload this tomorrow. And then I also wanted to create, so I promised in the first week that I wanted to create like short 2 to 3 minute overview videos for each episode. And I still want to do that, but I have to figure out a little bit how do I film them and when do I cut them and stuff like that. So I figured that out now. So I'm going to retroactively do all those overview episodes now, and I just upload 2 episodes per week to the YouTube channel to catch up to where we are now. So I haven't done this for any week except the first one where we talked about model view control. So there will be videos for week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And since I'm doing I will be uploading 2 per week, I can slowly catch up to where we are. But yeah, this is basically just because I want to make this tutorial series as accessible as possible. Not everyone has time to sit through a 2-hour live stream. So I want to basically make a short highlight video / explaining some of the concepts in more layman terms, so people who don't want to get too much into coding can get an overview of what we're doing here as well. And it's just easier, it's just more shareable, so people have an easier time getting into the series, see if that's something that they want to get into, and then decide to join the stream. So that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully I can be more have them come out consistently 2 per week. All right. I hope to see you all next Saturday. Have a great weekend, and yeah, see you then. Goodbye, everybody.